Okay, so we're carrying on and we're prepping the center crankcase now, ready to put the crankshaft in to the center casing. So the crankshaft is just set aside for now. And so I've just been prepping the center casing ready for the crankshaft. So the first thing is, after it's been bead blasted, or vapor blasted I should say, I've tapped down all of the threads all over the casing, and that's the same for all the crankcases. Obviously I've cleaned out and then cleaned out and cleaned out again all the various oil ways, etc., that run all the way through this casing, to make sure that there's absolutely no residue from the vapor blasting at all. I've also checked the threads on the main bearing sort of bolts that hold the main bearing caps down. Then I have replaced two of the studs that hold the stump plate on. These studs, they can wear quite badly, because normally to change the oil, people are taking the sump plate on and off all the time. So there was one stud was missing completely and had been replaced with a sort of bolt, and the other stud was wasted, as in it had like a wasp waste on it. The thread had worn where the bolt sat. You could see it had that sort of hourglass type shape. So I've replaced two. The other thread seemed fine. And I've also checked. I've cleaned everything as far as I can. I think that's about it. Oh yeah, no, that's what I was going to say. I've also checked the threads for where the oil pressure switch goes, and where the plunger goes for the in the gearbox. The plunger goes in there, and where the drain plug goes, because all those threads, they can be affected by the vapor blasting. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm getting ready to fit the two bearings. So I'm going to put the main output bearing for the main shaft back in there, the roller bearing. We're going to be reusing that bearing from before. And then I've bought a new needle roller bearing for the end of the lay shaft, and that's going in there. So what I'm going to do is, at the moment, I have cooling in the freezer. I've got both those bearings to try and shrink them a bit, and I'm just about to put this casing in the oven to heat it up to expand it, and then I'm going to drive the bearings in. The roller bearing for the output shaft, that's fine, that just drops straight in there. It's a bit more complicated for the needle roller bearing that goes in the lay shaft. It's a blind bearing. It's got an end on it, and it comes through, and it just got to sit proud of this lip. It's got to sit proud so that this thrust washer sits, that's a bit better, yeah, sits round sits around the edge of the bearing. It like holds it in place, but the bearing doesn't sit so proud that it comes through beyond the thrust washer. Okay, so it's got to, and as you can see, the thrust washer isn't very thick, so the bearing has got to protrude sort of like halfway through the thickness of that thrust washer, so it holds the thrust washer in place but doesn't come so far as to sit proud of the thrust washer itself. Now, I've always driven the bearing in from the back, but I've been told that what you can do is put the bearing in from this side and use the actual end of the lay shaft, which is what the bearing sits in, as a drift. So I might try that this time. The problem with this little bearing is that it's in soft sort of aluminium cage. It's very easy to damage it. The other bearings are pretty solid. They're fine, but that's a little aluminium caged roller bearing, and if you whack it too much, you're going to bend the cage that the bearing's sitting in, and the whole thing's going to be useless. So I'm conscious of that. Okay, we'll see how we get on. Anyway, so I'm just about to put this in the oven now, get it warmed, and then we'll get the things out of the freezer and the bearings, and then we'll have a go at fitting them, and touch wood, all will be okay. And there we have the center crankcase sitting in the oven. It's fan 160. should be ready with a few bit of rice and I don't know, a side salad or something in about half an hour. Yummy. And I've just taken the two relevant bearings out of the freezer. So that's the main output bearing for the gearbox, and that is the needle roller bearing that we're going to put in for the lay shaft, and that we hope is going to go in okay. So we're just going to give it a couple of minutes for the casing to heat up in the oven, and then we'll be going for it. Okay, we've got the housing out of the oven. I just mentioned, by the way, that because the housing is all clean, it doesn't smell half so much in the oven. If you put a I'll make sure that goes in straight. There, it's going in. Keep it going in, otherwise it will get hot. I'm just driving it home a bit more. Bit more. I think that's it. Yeah, that's good. Right, so I've just driven that home. I'll see if I can show you. I don't know how much we can see here, but I've driven that home so that it's just below the level of the thrust washer, but it's sitting proud enough from the casing to hold the thrust washer in place, which is very important because the thrust washer will skedaddle if it gets a chance. It will skew out. Of course, I can't get the thrust washer off now. It will come off, but it's all a bit hot at the moment, so let's have a look. There we go. Yeah, so pleased with that. That's gone straight in. Now we'll do the bearing, the gearbox bearing, which hopefully will go in a lot easier. There. Yeah, I'm fairly sure that one was going to go in. Let's make sure we are down all the way around. I forgot to get my drift out. So that one. Yeah, I think we're okay. I'm sure that's down. Yeah, okay, so all those done. So then I can just double check with the screwdriver, check that the needle rollers go around. Yeah, they're fine. That we haven't damaged. That's what I'm worried about. Always worried about damaging the actual that needle roller cage, the actual bearing sort of housing. Always difficult. Make sure you get it in, but not damage the casing. Great. So I just let it cool down a bit, and then I'll put in the two blanking plugs in the end of the oil ways there, and then I'll put the oil pressure switch in together with a new washer in the back of the casing there. Get all those little bits out of the way first, and then we'll be ready to put the crankshaft in the central casing. Good.